What's up, everybody? How you doing? It is 11:30 a.m. and it is time for the daily check-in with me, Ned Bellavance, Ned1313 on Twitter. As you can see, once again, I've got this OBS thing worked out, so my live stream is going through OBS. If you want to join me and post something in the comments, I invite you to do so. I'm curious to know what people's thoughts are on the things that I've been talking about. And hey, another thing that I set up just this morning, I created a podcast using anchor.fm. So if you go to anchor.fm/Ned-Bellavance, I'll put a link in the show notes too. If you go there, you'll find a podcast dedicated to the daily check-in. I'm basically just taking this audio stream and converting it to a podcast. So if you'd rather listen to this as an audio medium, you'll have a 10-minute daily podcast that you can listen to. Not that you don't already have enough podcasts to listen to, but that will be available now. It is currently distributing to all the various and sundry places you get your podcasts. So Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Google and whatever else you might use, Stitcher, I don't know. You do you, as well as an RSS feed is available there. But that's currently distributing out. It might take a few days for it to get registered with each of those providers. So you'll be able to search for it in your podcatcher of choice very shortly. So don't worry about that. I think that's all I have for housekeeping. So let's check in. How are you? I want to know how you're doing because this is a rough time for everyone. And I know I've had my ups and downs. It's been a difficult several weeks, really. Yesterday was great because it was sunny in Pennsylvania. The temperatures were getting in the mid 60s. The kids were able to go outside and just play for a while, which was fantastic. But it was also stressful. We're trying to educate 3 young minds as well as do our daily work tasks. And I'm sure you're feeling overwhelmed as well. So I just want to say, if you are feeling overwhelmed and it's becoming a little bit too much for you, reach out. There's no shame in the struggle, right? Reach out, talk to someone, whether it's a friend, a family member, or a qualified therapist of some kind. There's a ton of places that are offering services for free. So please do that. Your mental health is of paramount importance right now. So if you feel like you're struggling, reach out, talk to someone. Trust me on that. So that is my check-in with you. I hope you're doing well. The thing that I wanted to talk about today was something that I thought about last night in the context of taking on a new and potentially difficult or overwhelming project. I know I've taken on a lot of different projects in my life, and I'm sure you have as well. And the thing that I wanted to talk about that is the only way that you can approach a massive project without feeling completely overwhelmed by it is by breaking it into smaller chunks. So it may be a daunting project like writing a book, which is something that I am currently doing. I'm currently writing my second book, and this book is going to be a study guide on the Terraform Certified Associate exam, which isn't quite out yet, but it will be shortly. And I'm hoping to publish the guide around the same time that the exam comes out. You would think that an exam guide would not be that difficult to write, but it's right around 100 pages right now. And I did not expect that when I started it. But how did I do that? How did I approach writing a book, which is a big, massive, could be massive undertaking, and certainly it is daunting. Well, the biggest struggle with writing is that you're starting with a blank page. You've got nothing. You're creating out of the ether your thoughts down on a page. And if you're just going to sit down and start writing, a lot of people struggle with that, the terror of the blank page. I think that's a meme that's well known. What you need to do is break your task into manageable chunks. And usually the way you do that in a writing context is by creating an outline. In the case of the Terraform guide, I was very fortunate that the people at HashiCorp had created objectives and sub-objectives for achieving the certification. So here are the high-level objectives we are going to test you on that you need to know about. And here's the sub-objectives that roll up to that higher level objective. So the natural thing to do was to create an outline based on those objectives. Okay, now I've got an outline. Now I'm breaking it into smaller chunks. So I have to write about this larger objective. But oh, look, I've got smaller objectives in there that I can write about. Okay, that's good starting point. And then within those objectives, there's actually smaller chunks that I can break things into. Like if I'm talking about a topic within Terraform that has to do with interacting with modules, let's say. Well, I know modules have inputs and outputs. They also deal with variable inheritance, which you don't inherit variables. That's getting into the more technical realm of things. But I know there's these multiple subtopics that I can talk about within the context of an objective. So now I'm going to throw some headers in there and just say, I'm going to talk about these three things. Now I've taken it down to the paragraph level. And below that, I'm going to have the sentence level. So I'm just writing out a sentence, and I want that sentence to be good. And that sentence will lead to the next sentence. And next thing you know it, oh my goodness, I've written almost 100 pages with my co-author, Aiden Ermy. So while the process of writing a book is a daunting task, by breaking it into its chunks, it becomes more manageable. Another aspect of that could be you're starting a coding project. You want to code up something as an open source fun project, or you're doing something for work. And again, usually when you're starting with work, somebody's already handed you sort of the outline. It's not an outline in that case, it's a set of here's the things we want to accomplish or the spec that the software needs to meet. Okay, now I have something to start with. The next thing is, can I go find an example that's close to what I'm doing and take that as a framework for how I'm going to structure my application? I'm not copying and pasting, but I am using it as a guide. And then now, okay, I can break it down to modules in my application. And those modules can be made up of functions. And then there's logic to connect the functions. By breaking it into those pieces, now again, I have something that's much more approachable. I'm no longer looking at this daunting thing where I have to write this massive piece of software. No, I'm writing this function. That's all I'm doing right now. And then later I'm going to write another function. And then I'm going to tie those functions together somehow with logic. Okay, that's manageable. That's something I can do. What's another realm that touches my life personally that can seem daunting? Well, I mentioned yesterday, and I hope no one's getting annoyed with this, but I'll mention it again today. I'm planning to run a marathon in 3 weeks, more or less, on April 26th. And I'm going to run it by myself because social distancing, right? The prospect of running 26.2 miles seems very daunting. Now, you do a lot of training leading up to that, and part of that is training your body. But a lot of it is also training your mind, because once you get to a certain mileage, it becomes as much a mental game as it does a physical endurance test. Yes, you need the aerobic capacity and the muscle capacity and the ability to process lactic acid quickly. You need all of that to do the actual physical action of running a marathon. But what you also need is a certain mental preparedness. You need to work up to the point where you can focus in a way that will enable you to finish 26.2 miles. And depending on how fast you're running that, you could be somewhere in the 4 to 5 hour range. So that's doing something for 4 to 5 hours straight. How do you maintain positivity? How do you mentally work through that? And a lot of people talk about the wall, and usually it's not a physical wall, it's usually a mental wall that you're hitting once you get past a certain mileage point. For me, it's usually 20 to 21 miles. I'm tired, yes, but also I'm mentally tired. And I have to go back to the way that I've been talking before about writing, and also talking about programming and anything else you're going to approach that is large and daunting. I have to break it into chunks. It's not about the 26 miles. It's about the next mile. And maybe it's not even about the next mile. Maybe it's about the next half mile, or the next signpost, or the next 4 steps. I can make it 4 steps, and then I can make it 4 more steps. It's the next 10 seconds. And I've heard this thing, and I don't remember exactly where I heard it, but it was if I can make it through the next 10 seconds, then I can work on making it through the next 10 seconds after that. And after a while, you do get lost in the moment to a certain degree, and you're able to power through and finish what could be a very difficult task for you. So Applying this more broadly to life, I think whenever you're approaching a new project or a new challenge in your life, you need to take that challenge and break it into these manageable chunks. Those manageable chunks are the things that you are going to work through. And the last thing I'll say on this topic is when you accomplish one of these chunks, celebrate it, acknowledge it, make it a milestone. Then you have a good feeling about that accomplishment, and that good feeling bakes in a desire to accomplish the next thing to get that good feeling. So it's sort of a self reinforcing process once you've celebrated each milestone that you meet. So that's my thoughts on approaching big projects and breaking them up into chunks so you can make them more manageable. I hope this has helped you in some way. I am curious, and I'd like to hear from anyone who watches this or listens to it on the new podcast. Reach out to me, Ned1313 on Twitter. Let me know if you like these more esoteric topics that I've been conquering in the daily check in, or would you also like a mixture of more technical topics? I certainly have some technical things that I could talk about in the realm of cloud, in the realm of infrastructure as code, or a number of other things that I've worked on, maybe Kubernetes. I don't know. I'm curious what else you'd like to hear about in these shorter 10-minute ish segments. So reach out to me. Again, it's Ned1313. Check out the podcast. It's on Anchor FM, and I'll keep a link in the show notes. And, reach out to me. My DMs are open. If you need to talk about something, go for it. Until tomorrow, take care and stay healthy. Thanks.